Hey everybody, it's Jason Shadrick with Premier Guitar, and we are at the Anaheim NAMM Show 2022. I'm here with Mark from Taylor Guitars, and we are going to be talking about a pair of new 700 series Koa guitars. Now these guitars were kind of developed around kind of a new mid-grade batch of Koa, right? So tell us a little bit about that, Mark.
Yeah, so what's been happening over the last few years with Koa that's been interesting for us is because Taylor has been so good at preserving that and working with the forestry. We've built these relationships where we actually have more access to Koa than we've had in a long time, and even some new kind of varieties of Koa. Trees that are growing a little bit straighter. And so when I was talking to Andy Powers about this earlier this week, it's about how we cut these trees down, and you get that small fraction of a percent that's just this flamboyantly, beautifully figured Koa, and we put those away for our K-Series guitars. And other times we'll get the smaller parts of the logs or smaller cuts. We'll say that'd make a great veneer for a GT or for a GS Mini or a smaller guitar. But we found this grade of Koa that's it's perfect. It's great for the actual builder, as Andy would say. It's, all the structure, everything's perfect on it. It's just not quite as figured as something that might go on our K-Series guitars, right? And on those K-Series guitars, we tend to have a really glossy finish. You can see a mile into it. It's really beautiful. These guitars are still really beautiful. There's a lot of color variegation. There's still a lot of striping, but what happens is they're a little bit straighter from some of these trees. But sonically and everything else, they sound fantastic and they look great. But we thought, well, if we're going to make this guitar, we don't want to just make a lesser figured K-Series guitar. We want to make a different voice. So Andy started and said, okay, well, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to brace the back a little bit differently, not the top, but the back of the guitar, so that the ends are a little stiffer and the back's a little bit thinner, so it creates a different vibrancy of the instrument. On top of that, we added this ultra thin matte finish, and we look back to, we just did the 800 series years ago. We went to a 3.5 mil. I think this is somewhere around 2 mil. Wow. And what that does for it is it filters the sound a little bit, as finishes do, but it's very airy, it's very light, it's very vibrant. It's a completely different sound than our other Koa guitars, and also tactile. You can feel that, you can kind of feel the pores on it when you play the instrument.
Yeah.
When you check it out, it's really neat. It's a very light, comfortable guitar, and gives us a little bit different flavor of what Koa can sound like, and it brings Koa at a little bit better price point than maybe some of our high-end flamed Koa guitars will do.
So we heard on the intro kind of the plugged-in sound. Why don't I mic it up and you play kind of the same thing to get an idea about what the guitar sounds just mic'd up?
You got it.
And for people who might not be familiar with how the model number reflects the instrument, why don't you walk us through what the 724 CE means?
You got it. Okay, so the 700 series traditionally was Indian rosewood for us, and it was kind of the same thing where we would crack into a rosewood log, and you take the really nice stuff, put on 900 series, figured, and then the next level would be the 800 series, and then down to the 700 series. But we kind of realized we didn't need to really do that anymore. This is kind of a nice place for Koa to live. So 700 series became these Koa guitars this year. The 2 tells you that the top is going to be a hardwood top or a matching top on the back. So if we have a mahogany top, or in this case a Koa top, that's what we're saying. If we have a 1, it's usually a spruce top, or a traditional wood on top. The 4 tells us the body shape, and the 4 being a Grand Auditorium. So the 7 is the 700 series, the 2 tells us the top is going to be a hardwood top, and the 4 is going to tell us that it's the Grand Auditorium body. The C stands for cutaways. You can see here the guitar's got a cutaway, so you have the access to the upper registers, which is nice. And then the E is for the electronics, which you got right here. You've got your volume, bass, and treble. So 3 basic controls on our ES2 system.
Nice. All right, so that's the first one we're going to look at. Let's swap out to the other guitar and hear that one.
Real quick, do you want to hear a little bit of finger picking on it, just to kind of get a comparison?
Yeah.
So fingerstyle on this guitar also sounds good because it's, again, kind of light, airy. It almost has that broken-in feel to it. It doesn't take a tremendous amount of effort to get it going. Nice touch, balanced, and you get a little bit of that chime up on top. So yeah, really, really neat guitar. So the little brother to this one, we would say, would be the 20. So again, 7 is the 700 series. The 2 says we're going to have a hardwood top. But the 2 at the end on the 722 now is saying it's a grand concert body shape. It's our smaller body. You can see it's a little bit smaller and a little bit shallower depth-wise. okay, and a shorter scale length. So everything about this guitar is a little bit smaller, and you can also notice a huge difference in this same select grade koa is what we call it. It wouldn't really, I think earlier you said it was mid grade. It's really a select grade because it's still a really high end piece of koa. It's just not crazy figured, so it doesn't warrant that K series. But you can see, here completely different. There was no heartwood on the front of this one. A couple of cool little knots in the back, and just really pretty. And as we look at these guitars, we realize that with koa, one of the things you're buying a fingerprint. When you have your guitar, you start to know all those. You can look at it and immediately identify it as your guitar. It's kind of a cool thing. So I'll kind of pick up where we left off with finger picking on the last guitar, because what you'll find on this guitar is it takes much less energy to get the volume out. So the overall volume output is not going to be as loud as the other guitar, but it takes less energy to get up to volume, if that makes any sense. So it's a little bit lighter touch, and you'll notice same warmth. But I'm barely hitting the strings. If we grab a pick, and I'll kind of play that same intro just to give you apples to apples, not quite as loud, a little janglier, but you can still dig in a fair amount. Some of the kind of cooler appointments they did on this guitar I thought were really neat was, one, these new polished bronze tuners. I don't know if they can see that, but they're just absolutely gorgeous, and they complement the kind of the organic look of the koa instrument as well. You got the mother of pearl and the inlays and the paua up here. It's just a really aesthetically beautiful instrument. And then we also went back to using rosewood on binding, which was kind of off the menu. To hear Andy tell it, there was a lot of regulation going on for a couple of years with rosewood, and it was off of our menu for a while, I think most people as well. And now, some of the things have been lifted and fixed, at least for the midterm that I know of. And so we're able to go back to using a rosewood binding on there. It's just really a beautiful aesthetic on the instrument. It's very much a wood lover's guitar, and it sounds great as well.
And same electronics in both?
Same electronics. The ES2 is across all of our guitars.
All right, so these are available now. What will be the price on these?
These are $34.99 for both, either one, same. You don't get both for $34.99. One or the other for $34.99.
Buy one, get ones?
Buy one, get one free. Can't buy one, get the big bad. Yeah, but they're available now as well, so we're prepared to hit NAMM show running, so they're fantastic.
All right, Mark, we're going to have you play us out with something, but thanks so much for showing us these new guitars. This is Jason Shadrick with Premier Guitar.